Alright, this is it, the last one. So what we're going to talk about now is the reproductive system. You're all basically were raised with the internet, so you're probably pretty familiar with the outer portions. Alright, the main thing about the reproductive system is, as we go through this, the first thing about it that you have to understand is the reproductive system is designed so we can reproduce. Now, the reproductive part, we're going to have our gametes, okay? So gametes are going to be like our the oocytes and our sperm. Okay. Then sperm and the oocyte come together. Miracle of fertilization happens. Fertilization now, we have half the chromosomes from mom, half from dad. We have a zygote. The zygote is a bundle of cells. Okay. Those cells now start to become a blastocyst. They go down and they implant in the uterus, and then we grow into a nice little bambino. Okay, we know about the gonads. We're going to have our testes and our ovaries. We'll talk about the reproductive ducts and all that stuff, so let's jump right into this. Okay, there's way more than you ever want to know about scrotum that comes in this book, believe me. So the main thing you have to understand about the scrotum is that is where our testicles are going to be. Now, our testicles are a pair of testicles, and they kind of hang around. Normally one's higher than the other, kind of like an avocado tree. Avocados grow in pairs hanging down. Testicles, one's normally higher than the other. Okay? They like to be outside the body, so they want to hang free. There's a reason for that. We'll get to that. All right? So, we're going to go through all this stuff. Just kind of memorize this stuff for the test, and you will be fine. Now, the thing about our testicles is they have to develop inside of us. Now, they develop in a temperature of 98.6, but at that temperature, it would bake our sperm and make it so that they're going to not work. Okay? So, we have to find a way to keep our testicles cooler. So what we do now is we bring them outside of our body and we hang them in our scrotum, where it's going to be a little bit cooler. 96.6 degrees we need for sperm to develop. So here we are, 2 months. We've already got our testicle way up here. Those spermatocords sort of come in here. And right here we have, at 2 months, we have the beginning of a penis that kind of looks up at you one day while you're in there, and it says, I'm going to be in charge of you at some point in your life. 3 months, our testicles now are coming down, and at birth, our testicles will actually pull down and they drop into our scrotum. Now, so my wife finally decides to come out and listen to a lecture. My wife wonders how testicles fall. So, as you can see right here, our testicles at 7 months start to come all the way down. They're coming down farther, and here's our scrotum. Once they drop in, we now form our spermatic cord. So here's our spermatic cord, and along with all that is going to be our blood vessels and everything that go to it as well. Okay, this is our inguinal canal. So our inguinal canal, this little area right here, leads up to the inguinal canal, leads up to the inguinal crease right here, which is what gives you the little crease that you ladies want us guys to like work real hard and get that V shape right there so we get all those abs. So you want to have all of that stuff showing. Now, in the testicles, we're going to have our ductus deferens, which is actually going to be the spermatic cord, blood vessels and all that stuff, ileal inguinal nerve, genitofemoral nerve. Don't worry about all this stuff. Just understand that our spermatic cord right here is going to come up, goes over our bladder, and then it goes over to the penis. Now, our testicles actually have a muscle called the cremasteric muscle. This muscle can relax and let them hang down when it gets really warm. This muscle is kind of a unique one because there's a reflex. If you lay some guy down naked and you rub a sharp object up the inner thigh, this testicle will actually lift up. Okay? Trying to get out of the way. Sumo wrestlers, because of that gi, they grab hold of it, they pull, they grab, they twist and everything, and they kind of grind their testicles. So sumo wrestlers are the only athletes that have learned how to contract their cremasteric muscle to hold their testicles up here towards the inguinal canal for protection. Okay, you'll probably understand that all the time. Our dartos muscles are the ones that are, you can see on the outside of our testicles. If we get into cold weather or come out of the shower or go into cold water, you see that little ring right here on our testicles, on our scrotum, with all the ridges? That is our dartos muscles that are holding everything up. So that holds the scrotum, the cremasteric holds the testicles. Probably way more information than you ever thought you would know about a set. Okay, so, hey guys, we have a vaginalis inside of our scrotum. So, a tunica vaginalis is just the wrapping. And what that does is it wraps around our testicles and it gives them some lubrication. Okay? Let me see. So, right down here, this is our tunica vaginalis. It actually keeps everything kind of flowing around. See, dardos muscles, I already talked about that. Cream I talked about that. Let me see. Our epididymis right here. This is where we hold sperm as kind of matured, but they're not very active. They're not moving at all. So this is kind of the waiting center. Okay, pudendal arteries, nerves. Don't worry about that stuff. Don't worry about any of this. Let's see. Okay. So another thing I want you to understand in here is we have our seminiferous tubules. So our seminiferous tubules, this is how our testicles are all set up. It has these little tubes inside, these little sections, all right? So we have the septa, which separates out these little sections. And just know that the seminal tubules, let's see, best way to explain the seminal tubules, head farther. Okay, so in the seminal tubules, in the middle, the lumen of that tubules, we kind of have all of our sperm are being made. So this right here is a little tiny gamete being made. And it keeps being made until it becomes a healthy sperm. And the sperm gets released into the lumen. So all these little dots are future sperm being made. Okay? And then what happens is that sperm now is going to get put into the lumen and then it gets stored in the epididymis. Now, our testes also produce testosterone. So that is for spermatogenesis, to make sperm. It promotes sperm maturing. There is a part of a guy that is mature, I guess. Controls accessory organs. We'll talk about that stuff. Secondary sex characteristics. Makes us into a man. Growth and metabolism. Basically, testosterone makes us so we get bigger muscles, we get more hair. Metabolism makes us a little sweatier because our metabolism is higher. And sex drive. Spermatogenesis is just making sperm. Okay? Let's see. So, we get ourselves right up here, this one little cell. Now what it does is it goes through meiosis 1, where it divides up and winds up with 2 cells. The meiosis 1 goes into meiosis 2, and in meiosis 2 we are going to make 4 cells that have half the chromosomes of the original cell. That's your sperm. Okay. So as you can see, this is all happening. Okay. Now, while it's going on, we actually have something called our nurse cell, which actually is going to help store and nurture and mature and watch over our sperm as they are growing. So here's a nurse cell. She's watching out for these little guys. Okay. Now, mature sperm is going to have the head, then it has the middle piece, and then it has the tail. The head is where we can have all of our chromosomes. What we have here is mitochondria, and that's where the energy is. The tail is just a whip. Okay, now we have our epididymis. So our epididymis, so right up here we have all of our seminiferous tubules. They're going to empty into the ready testes and the mediastinum. That's really fun to say. And then we're going to go into our seminal vesicle, which is going to be sitting right on top of our testicle. This is our epididymis. Okay, function of the epididymis is it just stores sperm that is matured, but they're not activated. They're not swimming yet. Okay. Now, from the epididymis, we now have our vas deferens, our ductus deferens. So that is where we're going to actually take the sperm, and what it's going to do here is going to take it from the epididymis. Now it's going to travel up through the inguinal canal. The inguinal canal, it comes all the way up and it wraps around our bladder, goes underneath our bladder, and now it starts to get mixed in with some of our accessory glands, which are going to be the seminal gland, prostate, and the bulbal urethra. So first one it goes through is your seminal gland, and it goes into your prostate. and it's going to your bulbal urethra, and now it goes into the ejaculatory duct. So it actually circles around your bladder. So you can see it right here. Ureter, bladder. This right here is going to be our ductus deferens. Prostate. Okay, I need to go on too much on this part. Okay, let me see. Now, all of these glands, what they do are they're going to secrete stuff into our vas deferens. What it's doing now is it's actually making our semen. So we have a high concentration of fructose. So fructose is a sugar. So we're going to nurture our sperm. So it has some energy. Prostaglandins are going to make it so that these prostaglandins are supposed to make it so that the female, her uterus, stuff like that, is going to relax. Clotting factors to prevent from our sperm clotting up and sticking. Okay. So seminal fluid, what this does now too, is it also makes it so that our sperm becomes motile, means they start to swim. Okay. Let's see. Read about this stuff as much as you want. Don't worry. I just want to hit the high points. Okay, so in ejaculation, we get 2 to 5 milliliters of semen. In that, we get 20 to 100 million sperm count per milliliter. So you can have a 5 milliliter with 100 million per milliliter. That is 500 million sperm in one ejaculation. Okay, now the penis. We're going to have the root body and the glans penis. So, we're going to have ourselves some erectile tissue. This is sort of our spongy tissue. That's what they like to refer to it as. We have one corpus spongiosum. Yeah, when we start talking about erections, spongy always comes to mind. And the corpus cavernosum. We have 2 of those. So, the corpus spongiosum is on the top portion. The cavernosum is on the bottom. Okay. About the arteries. The prepuce is just the foreskin. That's what they take off in circumcision. Okay. So let's see. Corpus cavernosum and spongiosum, shaft, and the glans penis is the head of the penis. Let's see. Move along. Okay. So one thing I want you to be aware of when it comes to the male reproductive system is when you get older, you wind up with problems with your prostate gland. So when they do that, to check it, they stick a finger up your anus, they grab hold, and they start to poke along on this thing to see if it's the right size or if there's anything hard on it. Welcome to your birthday party. Let's see. Now, talked about men, now we'll talk about women. So, we have our ovaries, uterus, vagina, all the external stuff. What I want to do is jump right into the ovaries. So the main thing we're going to have is we have our vaginal canal, cervix, then we have our uterus, and then we're going to have our uterine tubes, and right up here is going to be our ovaries. Okay, that's just a weird view. Now the main thing about your ovaries that I want you to be aware of is, as with men, we're actually born with just the ability to keep producing sperm over and over. So we produce, billions of sperm really throughout our lifetime. Ladies, you're a little more selective. So you're born with a certain amount of oocytes that you can actually produce. So we have all these little oocytes that are sitting in something called an egg nest. And what happens there is we start to grow a nice little oocyte. And then it's going to be released and we get the corpus luteum. We'll talk about this stuff as we move along. Okay, so in oogenesis, how we produce that perfect little egg. So let's just jump right in. So we have our primary oocytes, and then they go into our ovarian follicles. So primordial, follicle stimulating. Let's just jump right into this. It's better if I get you a picture. Let me see. Estradiol is the main thing for oogenesis. Now, Estrogen, what I want you to be aware of, estrogen is going to be made in your ovaries, and it stimulates bone growth, maintains your female sexual characteristics. Let me see. Where's that picture? Okay. So your primordial ovarian follicle sitting in the little nest right here. So it's a little tiny guy. It's already set and ready to go. Now it starts to grow. It becomes your formation of your primary. So from the nest, it starts to get a little bit bigger. Okay. Then it goes into your secondary. As you can see in the secondary, it's starting to become more like the egg. Tertiary is getting bigger and bigger. Now, oogenesis, when this happens, when the egg nest says, okay, it's time to start making one, we go through the same thing, that meiosis. So we have regular meiosis for everything. One cell splits into two. Then those two split again into four. Those four have half the chromosomes of the original. So it's a haploid. So those ones right there are the reason why mom gives half the chromosomes, dad gives half the chromosomes. Now you have to realize this sometimes. Mom took the time to actually functionally pick the best oocyte she had to release. So she sends that out. Dad sends out a couple 100 million swimmers. So mom did her job of selection. Now, at some point, you have to look around at people and think, wait, hold on a second. That's the product? That was the strong sperm that was able to make it up there? I do that all the time when I'm walking around. Now, what happens here is we're going to have ovulation. Happens under the guise of luteinizing hormone. So here we go. Primordial follicle, right here, it starts to go. Okay. Then it becomes primary follicle. Then it becomes a secondary follicle. Tertiary follicle is becoming now a full oocyte. Now, under follicle stimulating hormone, this gets released. When it gets released, the area it was released from, that tissue is your corpus luteum. This is going to start to promote progesterone. If pregnancy doesn't happen, because progesterone maintains pregnancy, then we get this corpus albicans and it fades away and becomes a little tiny scar. Okay. Now, what maintains the corpus luteum is if we have mom and dad come together in the fallopian tube or the uterine tube, as soon as it implants in the uterus, what happens now is gonadotropic, with human gonadotropic hormone getting released, and that maintains the corpus luteum. Let's see, parts of the uterus, uterine body. I don't really want to be aware of the uterus. Let's see, fallopian tubes, don't worry about that. Okay, so let's jump to the uterus. Okay, body, fundus, isthmus, don't worry about any of that stuff. We're going to talk about this part. So we now have our vaginal canal. So the vaginal canal, it has these little ridges, these lines in there, so it can expand. So it can handle anything that needs to be in there. We have our cervix. Now, from our cervix, we now are going to go into our uterine cavity. Uterine cavity, we're going to have our endometrium lining, our myometrium, which is the muscular area, and let me see, and then our perimetrium, which surrounds our uterus. Okay, got all that covered. Keep doing the same thing. Don't worry about this stuff. Worry about the arteries. Alright, so menstrual phase. What happens here is that is the first sign of any kind of bleeding, okay? That is the beginning of menses. If you have pain during that, that is dysmenorrhea. What's happening now is the uterus was all set and ready for pregnancy and it didn't happen. So we're going to slough off that outer layer, which is normal. So it keeps things healthy. Now, talk about this in class. Just understand, in a 28-day cycle, follicle stimulating hormone spikes when we have that follicle developing. It causes the follicle to be released. As that was happening, estrogen was building, being released from the ovary. Now, luteinizing hormone spikes as soon as ovulation happens. Now what happens is estrogen starts to die down, and progesterone starts to grow. Now, this was happening to the lining of the uterus. In the beginning, as soon as you started to have your period, all of your hormones were low. Then all of a sudden, estrogen's growing and spikes on day 14. Day 14, luteinizing follicle stimulating hormone spikes up. Now the uterus is getting ready for implantation. Estrogen's going down and progesterone is going up. Eventually they've all dropped down and we have some problems. Not problems, but we have period. Okay. Now, vagina, vaginal canal, birthing canal, the rugate we talked about. That's all inside this area. Let me see. We have our urethra, that is connected to the bladder. Glans pubis is up on top here. That has a lot of nerve endings and erectile tissue. Labia minora is the inside fold. Labia majora is the outside fold. And breast, we have to understand there is we have our mammary glands. So we have our lobules, and just take a look at the pictures. So a little bit of fat in there. Lactiferous sinus, lactation, lactic glands, lactic duct, and mammary glands for milk. Let's see, and that's pretty much it. All right, we're good.